So I've been in practice in acupuncture and natural medicine for 40 years, and throughout that time and before, I've had this tension between what people say you really need to set a goal and go step by step and follow it, but then there's also many times where, as I'm just going along, the universe or some circumstance tells me the direction to go. So there's this kind of a conflict between setting a goal and staying on it, and yet allowing the universe or circumstances to redirect me in a direction that seems to be the right direction to go. Um, for example, when I was young, my father's name is John, and my real name is John too. And so, in order to avoid confusion, people in my family would call me JR, my first two initials. And then somehow, I think it was, I seem to recall in first grade when I was getting on a bus, my first grade teacher somehow decided to call me J because there was a different person called JR. And so out of nowhere, all of a sudden, a teacher is giving me a new name, which I don't know, somehow I think that's really weird thinking back on it. But, I just said, okay, I guess I'll be J now. And so family members would call me JR and others would call me J. And then flash forward to living in Philadelphia uh, after college. And in college, I'd also, well, in high school, I had to do an autobiography. So I was just walking through the library. It's a very large school. And I looked up on a shelf of the autobiographies. It's way up high. And I reached up just randomly and I pulled down the autobiography of the Dalai Lama. Everyone knows the Dalai Lama? Well, I'd never heard of the Dalai Lama at the time. It's in Indiana. I was sophisticated, but not really. I was sort of a hick. And so I'm looking through here and I decide to do a book report on this. And I start reading and I understand that he is discovered by the fact that he is able to identify 5 items that he owned in a previous lifetime, exactly the ones he had to choose between several that looked exactly the same. And it like really messed with my head. I go, oh my God, this is so incredible. And so I was kind of on this journey from a very young age. My uncle, who was a surgeon and a doctor, said I was going to be a doctor. And then I started shifting and I ended up going into philosophy instead in college. And so in college, then there were also these foreign exchange students from Japan. And my philosophy teacher, who also spoke Japanese. And so I ended up taking Japanese in college. And I had no plan to do it. I really had no particular super interest in samurai or ninja or anime or anything like that, like a lot of people do. But I ended up taking Japanese because my Spanish was so bad also. So I did Japanese. And then I lived in Philadelphia after I'd been in Japan and took other classes and graduated from college. And so I was living in Philadelphia with friends in a communal house, and I was translating Japanese research for the National Cancer Institute. And I was also going back to finish up medical school pre-med classes. So doing the acupuncture and other things like that, all of a sudden all my friends started calling me Dr. J. Now, if you know anything about Philadelphia, which I know that Jeff does, um, at that time in the 70s and 80s, there was this really famous basketball player, Dr. J, who he set sort of the standards of dunks and things like that. So because I was living in Philly and my name was Jay, my friends started calling me Dr. J. Well, I didn't choose that, but they sort of put that on me. And I've used that as a brand for the last like 40 years since I moved to California. And so I kind of use it because then people remember my name, Dr. J. I'm associated with a famous person. And so this was another one of those external environmental influences that happened, and I didn't necessarily choose it, but I sort of adapted it to my life. And so this is it's an example of how I may have a goal and I'm moving forward in a step by step fashion, but external world all of a sudden says, well, I think you should try this on for size, or you should do this instead. And so there's a certain degree that I resist the concept of setting a goal, being really focused on it, and going with blinders on. Anyway, that's it. It's sort of an internal influence, um, of wanting to pick up what else the universe is giving to me, but still trying to stay on a path, but being open to other ideas. And the last thing I wanted to just mention, that Danielle, I think is great. Like, as an acupuncturist, and having done it the last 40 years, there are no acupuncture jobs, very few. You cannot get hired as an acupuncturist. So I was sort of, by choosing to do that, I had to become an entrepreneur. And I was not groomed to be an entrepreneur in my young days. I was groomed to be an employee. And so when people say a job is just over broke, well, a lot of jobs are not just over broke. A lot of jobs you make a lot of money at, and there's a whole lot less effort because you don't have to do all the marketing. You don't have to do everything. You can just do this role and you can go forward. So I applaud those who have seen that, a job is not necessarily just over broke. And even if it is, sometimes we have to do it anyway for circumstances. So that's all I have to say. Thanks. And who else wants to talk now? Any other feedback? So, as an afterthought, I want to mention that this particular segment comes from a 2-hour session with the Actors Conservatory Institute. This is a Facebook group that Jeff Weatherford teaches and facilitates, where people get together once a week. And Jeff, as an acting coach and a director and an actor, brings up certain topics that becomes the focus of what people have an opportunity to practice and share their speaking skills, a way to engage other people in a particular way, as if they were on stage and as if they were telling a story that can then draw other people in, speaking from the heart. Fantastic class. There are a lot of different options once you're part of this Facebook group, and I suggest that you go and consider joining. There are several different subscription levels that you can join, and I suggest that you check it out. It's a fantastic group of people. The number of people who participate every week varies, and I have not participated in every single session. At the moment, we're up to 20, session number 20. But I think it's a fantastic group of people. People share from the heart. We learn a lot about other people, and it's a great opportunity to practice skills and to dig deep inside and learn more about yourself. Jeff's a fantastic facilitator. Other people bring in a great deal of heart, great deal of incredible, interesting stories, and people are tuning in from around the world. So again, I suggest that you check out the Actors Conservatory Institute on Facebook and consider joining the group. Thanks so much. It's Dr. Jay Sordian. I also have a Facebook group called Brain, Wealth, and Longevity that has a focus on improving your brain, the brain-heart connection, and where I take you from brain fog and massive fatigue to incredible brain clarity, more fun, recapturing and preventing potentially 20 years of brain degeneration and the potential loss of your legacy, both your memory legacies as well as your money legacies to needing to have special care for brain degeneration for Alzheimer's and dementia. So there's 2 Facebook groups I recommend, and we'll see you there. Also, in the background here, as you know, I speak Japanese, read, write, and speak Japanese, and in Japan, they use Chinese characters. And in this particular scene, this is Hokusai's very famous artwork with the waves. And over here off to the side, which you may or may not be able to see, I'm going to shift this a little bit. So you can see here this banner. And this is Chinese characters, but it's used in Japanese in Japan. This is Eigyo-chu, which means in business, like we're open now. I also sometimes have this one showing, which is Junbi-chu, which means I'm preparing. We're closed, we're preparing for business. So this is just a little bit of a background information. These are not random. These particular signs I've chosen are not random because the Actors Conservatory Institute is one way for me to prepare and to improve my ability to speak and connect with other people related to business and personal life. And this side is also, while I'm doing it, like right now, when I'm mentioning my Facebook group, it is also while I am in business. So sometimes you'll see me in the background, you'll see this particular sign up, and it's my subtle message to those of you who can speak Chinese, can read Chinese, or can read Japanese, to let you know a little bit about my internal mindset. Thanks so much.